What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Cal One-on-One. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and this episode is presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. With me today is Brian Cunniff, my colleague over at Cape Atlantic Live. Brian, thanks for joining me, man, and I cannot believe it already. We are a week away now as we're recording this from the football season. Battle of the Beach is coming up at Ocean City High School. A lot to dive into, but I figured this is a good opportunity to introduce the public to basically who we are and how we're evolving the coverage of high school football and high school sports here in Atlantic and Cape May County.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And yeah, you're right. I remember, back when I first started covering high school football in this area, the regular season didn't start until about the third week of September. and now it's moved ahead almost a full month. And yeah, it's kind of surprising that it's here already.
Yeah, no doubt. So week zero, as they like to call it, I'll call it week -2 if we want to. It starts on August 25th. But yeah, I mean, the Battle of the Beach kicks off. Of course, we'll have coverage on Cape Atlantic Live on our YouTube channel, streaming all the games. The first one is, of course, is Mainland. It's interesting, Brian. I look at Mainland because they were one of our primary subjects last season. They're going to be one of our primary subjects this year as well during the football season. They kick off at 10 a.m. This is a really talented football team. I talked to head coach Chuck Smith just a couple of weeks ago, and they lost Jabril Mace. We all know how great he was. He's out at Villanova now. Just looking at Mainland, but this has to be just if you're just looking at them on paper in a general sense, this is one of the more talented teams in South Jersey. Should make some noise and maybe compete for another state title this year.
Well, no doubt about it. And what I will say is, and obviously you have much more knowledge about Mainland than I do. But what I do know is that Lower Cape May scrimmaged them the other day, and I talked to a couple of their coaches, and they were very, very impressed with Mainland. They kind of felt the same way what you just spoke about is they're going to be a very, very good football team, and certainly one of the best in their division.
Yeah, no doubt. Another game that stands out to me is Millville, Toms River North. Obviously, Toms River North outside of our coverage area, but that they are our defending state champion, just like Millville. So that's a nice game to look out for at Battle of the Beach. If anybody out there listening or watching is going to go out to Battle of the Beach, be sure to watch that one. That's going to be a tremendous game between two state champions. Brian, you're more familiar, of course, with the Cape May County sports scene. Of course, Lower Cape May, Middle Township, teams like that for football, basketball, all kinds of sports. You've been in the area for so long. Those were two pretty good football teams last year. Both managed to put on some good seasons. We saw Middle make a nice run, and they're probably both going to be expected to. It's almost weird to say those two teams kind of reloaded because they were able to acquire more depth compared to last year. It seems like two small schools like that, and I was talking to both coaches, their depth has steadily increased over the past couple of years. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, they both have a lot back. And you're right. They're both deeper. I know they were very Lower Cape May and Middle Township. Their coaching staffs were very happy with the turnout they got over the summer. They say the numbers are up. Both teams with a lot back. Both teams with a lot back at the skill positions. You start at Lower Cape May. You're talking about a kid in Braswell Thomas who is going to be one of the most. He's already one of the most highly recruited kids in the West Jersey Football League. I mean, this is a kid that, he's going into his junior year here, and he already has offers from Georgia, Tennessee, Penn State, Rutgers, to name a few, Nebraska. And I know there's going to be more coming. He's taken some visits, and he's an electrifying wideout. I believe that they may be looking at him more as a D-back at the college level, as a bigger type of defensive back. He goes about 6'1", 6'2", maybe even a little taller than that. But he's obviously going to be a big part of what they do with Lower Cape May, and they have a good quarterback back in Hunter Ray, who is a excellent two-sport athlete. I know there's some Division III schools that are kind of looking at him for both football and baseball. And then you jump to Middle Township, and they have one of the best running backs around in Remy Rodriguez. Rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, despite the fact that he was never really fully healthy all year. He had a nagging ankle injury. He missed a couple games, still ran for over 1,000 yards. And then, not to be undone, we hear a lot down here about Braswell Thomas. I could tell you Michael Zarfati's as good of a wideout as there is in the West Jersey Football League, all divisions. Caught 30 some passes last year. The kid's a playmaker on both sides of the ball. So there's some star power with this these middle and lower Cape May football teams. And then you jump over to Wildwood. The one thing there's been a lot of I don't want to say controversy, but a lot of things with the West Jersey Football League that people don't like. It's taken away some rivals because people are switching divisions all the time. But what I can tell you is the West Jersey Football League has helped Wildwood's program tremendously because they've been able to get slotted into a division in which they can compete. And now, they went so long without winning a football game. And now these last couple of years, they've won a few games each year, and they got a lot back. They have one of the best all around athletes in recent school history, and Junior Hans in that program. A couple other kids that are 2 and 3 year varsity players that are back. Some of them are 4-year varsity players. So I think Wildwood's going to compete in their division against their schedule, which is nice to see for them.
No doubt. So it's great to see that these small schools kind of get a bigger platform and just look like they can compete at higher levels compared to the past couple of years. Some of our local schools, of course, EHC hired new head coach Rob Davis, who was the former Barnegat head coach. So that Group 5 school should be able to rebuild and maybe rebuild fast based on his coaching pedigree.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that. I mean, he did a lot of really good things up at Barnegat. I believe he was the coach when they beat Lower Cape May in a playoff game maybe 10 years ago, whatever that was. And he's good. I mean, and like you said, at a Group 5 school where they're going to get kids and a lot of athletes, I would expect him to do a really good job there.
Yeah, we'll see if that turnaround is in year one, or maybe it takes a couple of years, but it seems like they have some good talent based on what I've observed. And obviously when I talked to them the other month earlier this summer, some of the others, so we already mentioned Mainland and Millville, probably going to be state title contenders once again in Group 4. Pleasantville, talked to them as well, looking pretty good as far as a smaller South Jersey school here in Atlantic County. I had a question for you, Brian, because you're obviously more of an expert on the Cape May stuff than I am, but just so the people know out there, the people that are watching and listening will have great coverage of Atlantic and Cape May County this year, more expanded coverage on our YouTube channel as well with the football games, and of course with basketball coming up in the winter. But obviously you'll be covering for us as well, getting more of an insight to the Cape May County schools. Just I'm interested in your take on it, particularly with middle and lower, the fact that some of these smaller schools now have been able to, and you kind of already touched on this, the fact that they've been able to develop, and now they're more respectable football programs, searching for their first playoff wins. They're talking sectional titles at some point. You already mentioned Wildwood, how they've been able to build themselves up a little bit as well, despite all the realignment. What is it about Cape May County football and basketball to a certain extent as well that what's special about it, and how has it been able to rise over the last 10 years or so?
Well, specifically with basketball, this is a very basketball heavy area down here. And, people ask me about it, people from say Olympic Conference land that I know, and they say, why are the teams down there so competitive and whatnot? I think the best thing I can say is that the teams down here consistently punch above their weight. That's the term I use a lot. First of all, when it comes to basketball in this area, boys and girls basketball, we have very good coaches in Cape May County. I mean, really good. I mean, these are people that know how to run a program, and even when they might not have the talent that they have in certain years, they're always going to be competitive. And what you have is you have some schools like I'll say in Ocean City, for example. Ocean City's program is full of multi-sport athletes. You look at a program like Wildwood on the boys and girls side, it's all 3 sport athletes, and that's going to help your programs. And then you look at even Lower Cape May, multi-sport athletes, some football players, lacrosse players. That's a big deal. At Wildwood Catholic, they tend to more specialize. Middle Township as well. The coaching down here is very good. There's a real good community for basketball down here. The kids all know each other. They play some of them. You might have an AAU team that has 4 and 5 high schools down here represented. So there's a real good basketball community down here. And then when you look at football, I think what's happened with football is that the I think the youth programs have certainly helped. There seems to be some good coaching at that level. And in speaking in a lower Cape May sense, they actually what they did was they turned their seventh and eighth grade football program at the youth level into a school program. So that's actually run out of their middle school. So there's some continuity there that the guys there are kind of teaching the same stuff that they're teaching at the high school level. So that's certainly helped as well. Even at Wildwood, a lot of people may not know this, but Wildwood for a long time there was no youth football on this island. They went about a 5 or 6 year stretch, and then they brought it back, and that's certainly what's helped Wildwood become more competitive. Wildwood had some years where they might have 25 kids on the roster, and maybe 5 of them played football before they got to high school because they had to go to a different community to play. Now there's a lot more kids playing, and that's helped their program as well.
Yeah, no doubt. It's actually interesting you brought that up. It just took me back to my youth football days. We're talking when I was about 9, 10 years old, playing in the Cape, it was the Cape May County Junior Football League. But, even though the fact that I played in Egg Harbor Township when we were in Atlantic County, but we played Atlantic and Cape May County schools. But Wildwood back in the day, especially those Pee Wee teams, they were dominant for some reason. I mean, and I was always fascinated how they were so good at the youth level. And then as they progressively got older, maybe you could speak to this better, a town like Wildwood, the Pee Wee program's so good. JV, not too bad. Varsity starts falling off a little bit. All of a sudden, the high school, it's like these kids are just are they scattered amongst South Jersey?
Well, I think what happens is what people don't realize sometimes too is, for a lot of the schools, you may have 2 or 3 youth programs feeding into that high school program. In Wildwood, it's just one. So I think that plays a part of it as well. I think it's tough now too in a small community like Wildwood, and this is a good thing. There are so many opportunities to play different sports. Way more than when I grew up, probably a little more than when you grew up. But there's just so much stuff now. I mean, we see fall baseball. You have Cape Express soccer. You can play soccer in the fall and spring. There's lacrosse that's playing, in outside of its quote unquote traditional season. If there's basketball going on down here all the time. So I just think there's so many opportunities for kids to play that sometimes things get spread a little thin. That can happen.
No doubt. So, Brian, I'll leave you here with this one. Of course, Brian Cunniff joining me here on Cal One-on-One, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service on Cape Atlantic Live. Be sure to check us out on YouTube beginning next week with Battle at the Beach as football season kicks off. And, of course, every week after that through the length of the season. And, of course, basketball brings us up to the winter. And all of a sudden, we're going around and around and around. So, Brian, what are you looking most forward to this football season? I know you're mostly going to be in Cape May County, giving us the latest on lower, middle, Wildwood schools like that. What are you most looking forward to this football season, as we saw a pretty unique one last year, and now it looks like this one might even be better here in 2023?
Well, for starters, from a general standpoint, what I'd like to kind of announce here is that we're starting a new website down here, and it's going to be capeatlanticlive.com. It's going to be similar to the venture that I did before with another outlet. We're going to be covering everything. It's going to be basically an online local sports. It's mostly going to focus on Southern Cape May County, Cape May, Tech South. We will have a little bit of Ocean City coverage, but it's something I'm really looking forward to, and what I enjoy out of it, and what people seem to appreciate is, we go out and cover everything. It's not just about football and basketball. We're going to go to the soccer games. We'll go to field hockey. We'll have some stuff about tennis, cross country in the fall. We'll do a lot with wrestling and some with swimming in the wintertime. So really looking forward to that. The website will be going live right before the start of the football season. And we'll have some content out there, and we really looking forward to that, to getting this going, and and obviously we need some support. It's not something anybody's looking to get rich off of, but there's obviously some costs involved, and we want to get compensated a little bit for the time we're putting in. But it really is a labor of love for me and some other people that are going to help out. The Buddy Tarbottons, the Matt Ulmers. In a perfect world, there's some other people I'd like to be able to bring on as well. So we're going to have obviously the broadcast wing through what we do with Cape Atlantic Live on YouTube and Facebook and all that, and then we're going to have the regular coverage. I'm hoping to get out to 3 or 4 different games a week, and any other stories we'll be trying to cover and all that stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that. But your specific question about football down here, the one thing that I have, and I've been doing this now for almost 30 years. The one thing that's never happened down here is that Middle Township and Lower Cape May making the playoffs in the same season. So a lot of times it's one or the other.
Right.
I think both teams have a very good shot to get in. Lower probably has to really win a lot of games, because I don't know if they're going to have the PowerPoint opportunities that Middle Township will have. But I think they're certainly talented enough that they could win 6, 7, 8 games and give themselves a really good shot to get in. I think Middle Township's in the same boat. That's what's going to be really interesting to see if those two teams chase a playoff berth. And then wouldn't it be interesting if they matched up against one another in the first round? I guess it's a possibility. Yeah.
No doubt. So be sure to check out CapeAtlanticLive.com when it goes live next week, just ahead of football season. And be sure to check out Brian Cunniff's coverage all season long in Cape May County for, like he said, not just football, not just basketball. We're doing all the sports all year round. Be sure to check out Cape Atlantic Live on YouTube as well, as we broadcast football each week. We'll get into the basketball season. Of course, Brian and I would imagine, team up at some point especially when it comes to basketball season later this winter, as you'll catch us on the call, catching wherever the best games are during the week. Is we love it, and as you mentioned before, Brian, it's out of a labor of love. We love this area, and we want to keep growing our channel. That's been pretty much just around for we're talking about almost 2 decades now. This channel has been alive and well here in Cape May and Atlantic County.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're going to try to do this year as well is down this way is branch out and do some live video streams of some other sports. Perhaps we do a soccer game or two, a wrestling match or two. If we do wrestling, Nick, you got to come on, because you got to carry me.
Yeah,
I'll be the first to tell you, I don't really know a lot about it. I enjoy watching it, covering it, but I don't know a lot about it. But and maybe even we know how the weather in the spring could be around here, but maybe we can throw a baseball or softball game on as well. We're going to try to do that as long as we can get some advertising support. We certainly want to highlight these kids, and it's going to be a lot of fun going forward. And it's almost that time again, Nick, where we all lose our Friday nights for 2 or 3 months.
That's right. And I mean, you
in
look
a good way.
Yeah, of course, in a good way. You look forward to it, and also you're like, oh, well, now Friday, I don't have Friday night off. But sometimes these games they're over by 8:30 anyway. So these Friday nights get a little bit earlier and earlier each year. All right, Brian Cunniff with me on Cal 101, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. I'm your host, Nick Kosko. As always, we'll see you next time, and be sure to check out Battle at the Beach starting next week, August 25th, live from Ocean City High School. We have games all weekend long to kick off the 2023 high school football season.